Yeah, we do manufacture and supply personal protective equipment. We supply beyond Total Energies. We supply their subcontractors. Yeah, we have seen our company transform from a trading company to a manufacturing entity. We are able to set up some of these facilities that we are enjoying right now. And these facilities also are supporting other sub-sectors. So they have no idea what oil and gas is, but the items they are using are a result of oil and gas. Overall, the industry, manufacturers, suppliers, traders will all enjoy.
Total Energies EP Uganda is committed to the empowerment of Ugandans to take an active part in the overall development of the oil project in Uganda.
The stage is a world of entertainment.
Squeeze, baby, here you all I got. I'll be a soldier for you. I'm getting better.
Get the latest entertainment, lifestyle, events and activities. Chats with celebrities that make headlines.
It's your girl Zari, Mama Tifa. I'm in town, I'm in Uganda.
It's showbiz. Join me, Mary. I intend to connect you to a lot of fun. Cause I know you want it, you love it, you enjoy it. All on Power Flavor Magazine, reloaded for you right here on UBC. Don't miss out every Saturday, 12 p.m.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Why do we fast as Muslims? We do observe fasting as Muslims because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is busy training us to be patient. As you practice patience, this is a lesson we learn from our fasting, specifically the holy month of Ramadan. Do you know what it means waking up in the morning? You have some time, money to buy something. No one is physically supervising you, but you do away with breaking your fast till dawn, or maybe till sunset. That's discipline, that's patience. So the lesson as to why, or maybe the reason as to why we observe fasting for us Muslims to be just like you're patient from dawn to sunset in Ramadan. Don't you think you really need to be patient even in your day-to-day life? And that's why we observe fasting. So if you ask today, why do you observe fasting? As simple as saying, you observe fasting because you need Allah to elevate your discipline levels, specifically in line with being patient. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that ability. Allahumma ameen. Wa barakallahu fikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Brought to you by UBC TV and Star TV in partnership with Foundation, Muslim Convertibility.
World Cup in the desert, the first one in the Middle East, the first to be held at the end of the year. That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals. Out of this world celebrations.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Go TV. Love it.
Well, thank you so much and welcome back from the break. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka, owner Pan-African Friday. Today it is the 22nd of April in this year 2020. Pan-African team, Rachel Takali in studios, Ndugu Rugarama from the Pan-African Movement Uganda chapter, called Mandia Mazima, and of course Ndugu James Mututa here. Continuing with the conversation, Rachel, before you come in, Ndugu, when we took a break here, we were sharing some information with Rugarama. Come with that information before Rachel comes in. And Rachel, when Rachel comes in, I also want us to look at, now we talk about parliaments at national level, but I also have parliaments at continental and regional levels. For example, we have members of parliament representing Ugandans of all different types in our parliament, national parliament, but we also have members of parliament representing the country called Uganda at the regional parliament, and we also have members of parliament also representing Uganda at the continental level. And of course, what do we know about this? What does it what do you even make of it? Apart from having a member of parliament or members of parliament representing Uganda in the Pan-African Parliament or in the East African Legislative Assembly, what do we take or what do we get or what do we benefit from all these involvements? Rachel will come on that after getting this information from Rugarama.
Thank you so much, Mugulu Jagenda. I was just taking some notes here, and I would wish to just say the following. You have provoked a very serious debate here, my brother, and I observed how passionate my brother Akor Amazima was when it was when he was submitting on the Uganda development. He said they are equivalents. Of course they are in each of the African country curriculum development center. I want to submit that these various curriculum development centers are actually not African development curriculum centers. They have long been captured. The moment you do not fund yourself, you cannot claim to develop anything, later on also disseminate it for purposes of bringing up your communities. Bottom line, in majority of these curriculum development centers, is that you will always tailor your development agenda of whatever you want to teach to the humes and interests paying you. The moment we do not liberate ourselves by financially making sure that we sponsor the information generation, scientific or otherwise, there will always be curriculum development centers in a name, but they are not ours, and the problems associated with that will always percolate and perpetuate. I want also to state, because there was a mention of the growing numbers of non-opposed in parliament and what have you. You see, our nature of politics is that we have, and whereas there is no problem with that, because we seem to be suffering the same problem everywhere, because the over-commercialization of politics is actually in the so-called developed democracies. Nobody spends as much money in politics like it is spent in America, in Britain, and other so-called democracies. The problem we have here is that the not so well off, politically speaking, are the ones with the money, and they will always buy whoever wants to come through, probably with better ideas, and they are going to impose themselves, and they will be the determinants of our future going forward. And finally, education problems date back to the colonialism. We are still suffering the pags of neo-colonialism, and we seem to be on the increase. And very finally, therefore, if you want to appreciate that, you have to look at books like Confessions of Economic Hitman. When you read the Confessions of the Economic Hitman, you will appreciate that some of these issues we are raising, and we seem to be complaining and even blaming, because you see, there has been a persistent cry from those who probably have not taken time to study what we are suffering from, to say, we have for a very long time blamed the white man. The white man has spent so much or many years without being on the African continent. The truth of the matter is that the white man has never left. Like I said the other time, in the film, Kinta Kunte, Toby, who was actually his real name being Kinta Kunte, when he comes and reports to the ringleader, and he says, I have seen a white man. The white man has never left us. We need to open our eyes and see how to neutralize the influence of the white man. Because the white man comes through the African man who has been whitenized, if there is such a word in English. And we are the ones who are we are placing such a black man who is white essentially in Uganda Development Bank, in the Africa Development Bank, in the sectors of agriculture, and these are our very sectors. Probably they are even the ones making these contracts to do with our coffee.
Okay, Rachel, come in.
You know, there are many arguments that could be advanced on this very matter. But I think for me, it's a question of discovering at the very most basic level what ails Africa. And I think what ails Africa is that we have failed to invest continually in the quality of our human resource. And I'm not talking about skills. People talk about skills transfer. But skills transfer cannot cure a sick man. Africa is sick at the core. And why is it sick? Africa, for example, has quite a few PhDs as we speak, and masters and so on. But when it comes to the number of people who have the country at heart, those ones are critically, there is a critical shortage. We really don't have any statesmen left. When the colonial era came to an end, there were some people who still had Africa at heart. And of course, their legacy endures to this very day. We have among them people such as Nkrumah, the Patrice Lumumba members of this world, Nasser, of Egypt, and so on and so forth. But once that generation passed, we have had masqueraders until this very day. There are people who say they have the interests of these people at heart, but in a few short years, we discover that it was a big and tall lie. That has been costing us all these decades later. I'll give you a very potent example, and it's fairly recent. It's one thing to talk about Nigeria that got independence back in 60, I believe, or thereabout, or Ghana in the late 50s, but that is too far. There are too few people who lived that far back. We'll talk about South Africa. When South Africa got independence in '94, by 2015, they were where Uganda is, and they've been struggling ever since. So what is the problem? In other words, Mandela was the only statesman of his generation. Just like Nkrumah was the only statesman. Oh, there are a few others, but not many. So he had South Africa at heart. But the successors only have pillaging and stealing at heart. So when you have that kind of person, it doesn't matter whether he's a PhD. He's only looking to position himself to steal some more. And that's where we are. It doesn't matter if that is a clergyman, just like Mazima said, in Malawi. That clergyman at heart, he only wants to be placed in a position to steal. The opposition wants to be placed in a position to steal.
Today, like
it's a contest of thieving. So Africa has a shortage of people who care about it. They look like us. They talk like us. But they are not us. That is the problem. You and I, Mr. Jagenda, at this very hour. But it is only when we are tested by an abundance of resources that we will know who we really are. And so we keep telling out folks,
the African in us evaporates.
He's forever masquerading. So much so that in some cases, even the white man loves Africa more than we. There are cases where they have invested where it really matters. But whenever we get the levers of power, we are so greedy and so given to inflicting ourselves with harm. And this is true in South Africa. I was saying that 10 years after Mandela ceded power, 10 years after he took the presidency, there was a speaker at that time, who I'll not name, and this particular person was accused giving the opposition a chance to actually do what they came to do, to represent their people with their views and so on. But that person was also said to, that person was the sixth in line in terms of political hierarchy within the ANC. These contradictions, you can't have a speaker who's actively in the politics of their party, and in most cases the majority, and you expect that the interests of the country will be protected. It is not possible. Like you said, you have to have, the competition has to be fierce enough, like in cases of America, where there is a balance in the numbers, whether it is in Congress or in Senate, such that you cannot run away with the ball. But you see, we have people who assume power with the intention of furthering themselves. But in the beginning, we always believe that it is for the state. Where did I begin? Until we get to the drawing board concerning what really Africa requires, we will never get anywhere. I don't care whether we have parliament, whether we have a senate, whether we have a judiciary, whether they have the executive. It is much ado about nothing. That is why
of a parliament is to legislate and of course to appropriate, and of course we tend to see these issues and talk about the different policies, talk about ratification of all these international agreements. Yourself on TV, then the other day you contest for some constituency, come and become a member of parliament. We've seen people moving from the medical profession, moving from the legal profession, moving from these from the teaching professions and getting into elective politics, especially to become members of parliament. But because we know why parliaments are actually there, and just looking at the cardinal roles of the parliaments, are they doing their best? Are they serving the interests of Africa? Can they help? Can they salvage? Can they save? Can they redeem our continent?
Now, when you look at the cardinal roles of the parliaments, if actually the parliamentarians were doing that, I think Africa would be at another level. But let's look at one, how do people get into parliament? That is point number one. How do we get our parliamentarians? That parliamentarians are sponsored by parties. And how do they get party flags? Those are also some of the issues that we have to look at. How do they get the party flags so that they can actually be able to represent people in parliament? That is the other thing. Now, I must confess that here in Uganda, the parliament we had of the 1996-2001 parliament was one of the best. 1996, the sixth parliament. The sixth parliament. Because that was when the individual merit was at its best. That every constituency had to choose their best. You'd look at somebody as an individual, and you can look at the people really who came to that parliament. They really, that's the parliament with so many ministers being censored. Yes, those really, you find that even ministers were conscious of what they were doing. But ever since we went into this multipartism, where there is now that collective, caucuses have actually killed the level of debate. Caucuses, not only in Uganda, even in other countries. But again, let us look at, there are issues also need to understand. When Ndugu Rugarama and our sister Takali were presenting, it reminded me of a book called a novel, Erith for Udomo, by Peter Brahms. You know, when you read that book, Erith for Udomo, it explains to you that when Africans were fighting for the cause of their independence, they were united. But upon achieving independence, the people who got into leadership realized that running government is different from the activism. Yes, and it also brings me to the popular saying of the cattle keepers, that what they discuss when they are grazing is not what they discuss when they are what? When they are milking. Because when they are grazing is that in whatever form you are, you must come and help. But when they are milking, the question is, have you washed your hands? So the question, most of our MPs, as raw as they come to Parliament, they don't bother to wash their hands. When I talk of washing hands, they don't up their game in terms of research, in terms of reading, in terms of understanding the strategic interests of their parties and countries. Actually, some of them, even the 5 years end when they are still in that excitement of we've landed in things. Those are some of the things that really come out. Now, I'll end with Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon says that it is not avoids, they end up being totally compromised. When the issues of Lazarus Chakwera is a PhD holder, he's a doctor. Yeah, but it is
parliaments on the continent of Africa. Of course, we need to be cognizant of the fact that we have a parliament here. Like we said, it is very possible to go to District A in this country and you find that this district does not have a DHO. You can go and in this district, you have a district service commission. They've not advertised for a job of maybe a district planner or a district officer because the Semakola's son or daughter is still in university and they're waiting for him or her to graduate and then maybe come and take over this. And nobody will make noise, nobody will quarrel. Lose a member of parliament today. As we come to bury you, as we come morning, we come with posters, we come with what do they call them? We come with flyers to actually say, I am the incoming. And the moment we put you in that grave, the moment we tie you in there, then the other day we are posting to say, I am the next for this constituency. And believe you me or not, the Electoral Commission will, after your burial, put up a roadmap and say, this is what is going to happen. We will nominate on this day, the campaigns will start here, we will vote on this day, swearing in will be on this day, and we cannot afford to have a slot in Parliament for a season without representation. Now, and we do this for districts or constituencies that have persons. Let's go to Omoro, where we lost the speaker recently. Now, there is a member of parliament for Omoro district. The woman member of parliament, Lamwaka, is actually there. But we will assure you that we need to find a replacement for Olanya in Omoro. And the people will actually demand and say, if you decided not to have somebody to take over from Olanya, people in Omoro will make noise and say, but we don't have a member of parliament. Now, everybody who wants or whoever wants or whatever it is, they will say, we need a member of parliament. And nobody will remind you to say, even if we do not get another person now, as we continue mourning Olanya, because we have a woman member of parliament, they will demand and say, we need them. And just when you look at them, because we do not have a vacant parliament at any single moment, but the impact and of course their role, their being here and how do they help, because it starts with Uganda and of course it gets another country and of course the other day it will be the entire continent, and just looking at all our parliaments or either individually or at regional levels. We have IALA, for example, we have the Pan-African Parliament. What are these things here for and what do they do for our continent at the end of the day? Apart from somebody having a CV to actually say, I represented Uganda at the Continental Parliament or I represented Uganda at the Regional Parliament. What about that?
And at the same time, again, we'll go back to Ghana. We had discussed about it. The population is about 40 million people.
In Ghana?
In Ghana.
Same as Uganda almost.
Yes, and the number of members of parliament in Ghana are 270, I think 275 there.
Yeah, about 270, yes. Because about 175,
yes. So
174 for each party. Yes.
Of the parties. And I don't think...
they have what we have.
Exactly.
We are 500. We are 500 and no 29. 500.
Yeah.
We are 529 now minus 2.
Yes.
Olanya and Lokodo.
Yeah. Now we also have.
Not a member of parliament.
Yes, exactly. Lokodo was not a member of parliament. He had actually lost.
Been replaced.
Oh, so we are 529 minus 1.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Lokodo had actually been replaced.
South Africa has a population of about 100 million.
Are they there already?
Population about that.
Are they there? Like Ethiopia?
I think so.
Well,
now, but when you look at the numbers in Parliament, they are not as basky as we are having in some of the smaller countries in Africa.
With Marema in the house, do you need men?
Unfortunately, we were supposed to have him on the show. But
He told us he's very busy in the...
Yeah, but we shall be having him one of these days on our show here. Now, when you, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because when you are looking at these members of parliament, for example, Uganda's case, you are going to spend a vehicle for each of them. They will be getting housing allowances for each of them. They have health insurance for each of them. All those. But then the way you put it, and put it rightly so, if they say district health officer, district
education officer,
or no one will complain. In fact, the district councils will even be very comfortable because
not
they are saving. Yes, because they are saving on that position. But if a chairman of the district is died today, it is by law. For example, when a member of parliament dies, I think it's 15 days. The clerk of parliament has to notify the electoral commission that there is this position which has fallen vacant. So someone has to be ready for it. It sounds bad, but that is what is there. But when we look at how many people are being lives are at risk without a doctor in a hospital, or without a nurse or someone or a teacher or in a school, that is not a problem. Now, you don't blame even the policymakers, but also those who demand, because I think we have been corrupted so much to believe that without a politician you can't survive. But at the same time, it's the politician who is making the law anyway. So he has to make a law that is going to protect and provide a conducive environment for them to be able to work. Now, when you look at it in the other way around, who have had a track record of how they have performed from backwards, they are likely to be good legislators, and they are likely to get the government, because definitely it is not about being opposition or being in government, but what idea do you have for the development of the country? We have had people, and of course the issues of ideas, that super ideas will always prevail, whether you are from opposition or whether you are from government, because once you are in a house, we are looking at what is good for this country, and that should be the most important thing. But we have also had issues because an idea is brought by a person of not your party, of trying to use the iron of numbers, of course, the tyrant of numbers, trying to shut some of those ideas down. But the bottom line is, as Africans, colleagues have talked of not knowing what we want, not identifying our problems. I think the problems are there, but the will. Because the other bad thing is the turnover. You get a person, is elected in parliament for the 5 years. Now, these 5 years, many of them actually are trying to learn how to be in parliament, what to do in parliament. Now, by the end of the 5 years, another person comes in. Then you'll have, so most of these administrative areas in parliament or the district councils, they are always continuing to train, but also you also have this.
Why don't we increase the term to 7 years? Because You come in as a fresher, you need maybe a year for orientation, then you acclimatize yourself with parliamentary business and how work is done in there. Then you now stabilize for maybe the third year, fourth year, the fifth year. Then again, you start thinking of an election. They've been those arguments. Now, you go to places like Ghana, where your term is 4 years. And we do not know the rate of a fallout, and of course those that keep coming in. Look at Uganda, for example, where we have had so many members of parliament who are just travels abroad, and I think that also brings in the other thing, the other aspect, that you notice that majority and many of our members of parliament are on these foreign trips. They are benchmarking and benchmarking and benchmarking and benchmarking. Exactly. And you wonder, what do they see in those countries that cannot be done here? Or what do they go to benchmark that when they do the benchmarks, they do not come to implement what they saw here? I want to hear your thoughts on that, Ndugu Rugarama, and I think Rachel will also talk about that same issue of benchmarks.
Once again, I thank you, and to all our viewers, thanks for continuously keeping with us. Let me say that parliaments everywhere have got programs, but programs differ. In our case on the African continent, to start with, and this is where we started from, because I remember my sister was here nodding in approval, made a very powerful submission that this thrown it into our faces that actually we have given you cocaine, but somehow we maintain it. The parliament or parliaments that we have on the Africa, even in Ghana, by the way, what are them? You see, there are national objectives and national goals. But what are Uganda's national objectives and goals? When you turn the 1995 Constitution as amended and you look at our objectives, our goals as a country, how much does our parliament endeavor in its legislation to achieve that? There is an aspect which was, I think, brought by, was it Comrade Akoro or Mtuta, one of them, and that was to do with, it doesn't matter whether you are an opposition MP or you are an independent, if you have brought, I remember a political incarnation with Chira municipality, brother of mine, but when he makes his submissions, I lean forward, I'm like, no, I want to listen to this. And I think time has come when we must appreciate the quality in a debate of an individual, whether you are from the opposition or from within. The caucusing that Ndugu Akoro was talking about wouldn't even be a bad idea. But if the caucusing is going to limit the quality of debate and going to mute the expression of individuals from within the party, not to contribute to the quality of debate, then caucusing will become a problem. I want also to say that as we stay cut medical supplies as they are doing currently, always the vote will be that America stands with Israel. What is our position as a country? What are our goals? What do we vote on? What are those things that our parliament will say, on this we are together? Now, as long as we do not get that, we are going to still have a problem. Because you see, if, for instance, the Robo Hospital is a bad deal, it does not matter whether you are an NRM MP, whether you are an independent MP, whether it is Honorable Betanambose that has brought this idea. If the minority report has got in it something that will save the country, then we all should rally around her. But I will tell you briefly that as long as we have had the American parliament, which we will call a democracy, in place for over ages, And the health insurance of the so-called minority groups like the blacks and others is still as it is. The housing scheme is still as it is. The education system and benefits to the black community is still as it is. The police recruitment and the brutality is still as it is. Whether you appoint a black woman at the highest level of judiciary, it will simply amount to nothing but tokenism. So I want to conclude on that by saying that the benchmarking which you are talking about here, it doesn't matter how many times you step on the plane and go to benchmark. As long as you come here and there is no will, either from Parliament to genuinely and sincerely debate, generate those ideas, and they are implemented. When you generate them, they are implemented. You see, even when I don't like you, and this is the beauty about debate. The debate, if it must be informed debate, I don't have to be a close friend. I don't have to be Mututa's friend. Fortunately, they are my friends. But as long as you bring an idea which is sound, I am duty intellectually bound to support that idea. Right. We seem not to have that. We seem to have the idea, has this one been said by an opposition? Yes. By all means, I am not going to support it.
If I am NRM, anything by opposition is bad. If I am opposition, anything by NRM is bad. Takali, on the issue of benchmarks and you know, these trips and travels and anything, and we hear them talk about these things every day. When I was in China, when I was in the US, when we were in Canada, when we were in South Africa, when we were here, all the things.
I think I'd like to return to the question of the day. It says, how are parliaments developing democracy in Africa? They are not, because they are incapable.
They can't?
No, it's not possible. For the simple reason that, what is the definition of democracy by our books? I think it's a consensus of the minds concerning how a society wants to be governed. I think that's a loose interpretation of what democracy is. That conversation has never happened in any society on this continent. If it has, let me know. That is why when people go to parliament, they're incapable of furthering democracy because what we have was never agreed upon by us. So no one is able to perpetuate something they don't understand or have never internalized. It is not possible. We have never started on the journey of democracy, unfortunately, Mr. Jagenda. Where the colonial master left us is where we are, if not worse, on the journey of democracy. Because we have not invested in having a democracy that we can execute by consensus. The democracies we have been agreed upon in London and in Washington and in Sweden and in Copenhagen. The democracy that we can execute must originate in Uganda, be agreed upon by Ugandans, and be lived by Ugandans. So what people have given up, unfortunately, many people who join parliament don't even believe they can see democracy. They have given up. They have resorted to only taking as much as they can per term in office. That's where we are. Unfortunately, most of our leaders are also in that place. They have given up. No one is trying to breed a product that will endure for the long term. Everybody's living for now. That is why we have pillaging and stealing. I'm trying to answer what you asked. Why the forever benchmarking that yields nothing? No one believes in benchmarking. No, don't believe them. When they leave this country, they say we've gone to benchmark. It is a lie. In fact, when they return, they'll have nothing to show for it. In fact, after 10 trips, they'll still be no better off. Whether it is the opposition. The people of the opposition, for example, the Lord Mayor, he has been benchmarking forever. Nothing there.
When he comes, you disturb him.
Because these people have also...
information lapses. That's why we talk about members of parliament and say, what do they even know about global politics, international trends, etc., etc. We're grappling with this and that, but what do they even know about all the things? If they will actually help us understand and answer the question here that Takali is talking about, what is even democracy to them?
The problem is not that there is no democracy or there is democracy or even lack of it. The problem is the failure to, first of all, have strategies as countries, as Uganda. Where do we want to be in the next 10, 20, 15 years? Or as Africa, what do we want to achieve in such a time, and how do we do it? Because then we can put in place systems that will be able to guide us to be able to do that. We have seen very useless leaders in some of these so-called democracies, developed democracies, very useless guys who have come to power. But because systems are strong, they have been able to be guided or to be checked. Talked on for him who was dancing in the parties. Now, so we are looking at a number of things that happen, and without a plan. And you know, they say teamwork without leadership is confusion, because everyone is then doing what others are supposed to do. So as Africans, I think we need to build systems. Once we have built systems, leadership Africa is to talk of democratization. The beginning area is to allow systems to be built. Okay. But that's also another debate, another struggle to allow systems, because once you build systems, then you are likely to be edged out by the same systems that you are building. But once you build systems will be able to sustain and be able to focus on where the country is to be taken in the next how many years.
Colin, just about 2 minutes, because we have about 5, 6, 7 minutes to end the show here. 9 years ago, we launched the Africa Dream 2063 at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa. And we're trying to conceptualize it, know what it actually is, the Africa Dream and the Africa that we want to see in 2063. Yeah. In Uganda, back home here, we have the Vision 2040. And of course, we even ask a question and say, where do we want to go as Uganda? Do we even have a national plan or a national consensus? Before we even talk about the other things, there is that Africa that we want to see in 2063, but what is the Uganda that we want to see? And are we even working towards that Uganda that we want to see? Now, if we do not see that Uganda, then how can we even mirror ourselves in that Africa? But because time is running out, just use 2 minutes. Ndugu Rugarama will also use maybe 1.5 minutes to do his closing remarks. Mututa will do the same. Then Takali will say something finally before I get out of studios.
Well, just before getting to that, you had talked about something of benchmarking. You know, so somebody told us that these days it has changed from benchmarking to bedmarking. That actually when people go for benchmarking, they end up in hotels, sleep, have their...
So they bedmark
they bed instead of benchmarking.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we don't see results. Now let's get to...
That's a cold theory.
Let's get to the issues. We talked about the African Dream. Now, when you look at how our members of parliament represent our representatives at the African Parliament and representatives in Yala, they come from parliament. It is the parliament, or it is parliaments that elect our representatives to Yala, and it is amongst the MPs that they get the 5 representatives to the African Parliament. So that whatever is discussed there can easily be
cascaded,
yes, yeah, ratified and domesticated. That is the essence. But now the question is, to what extent are our representatives knowledgeable of what is going on? Some of them are sent there, and all their 5 years are spent as tourists. Because you find that it is sending somebody, giving somebody a job, because maybe he's the loudest noisemaker in their party, and they feel they should reward them.
Some incentives.
So that tokenism. So they are rewarding somebody who does not even understand the vision for the continent, who does not even understand the national goals. Okay. So those are some of the.
So having them there and not being there is more or less the same.
Is more or less the same. Then lastly, on the issue of our parliaments, I think everything, like Nkrumah said, everything raises and falls on leadership. When you have a parliament that has a strong leadership, I'll take you to Kenya during in 2007. They had Kenneth Marende, and they've always referred to him as the Solomon of the time, because he made sure that the rift between ODM and PNU was actually minimized, and that is the time they achieved a lot. Now, when you also go to Malawi, they have Henry Chimutu Banda, the one who successfully had that transition from Bingwa Mtarika to Joyce Banda. You know, Joyce Banda was the president. So when you have such kind of leaders, such kind of speakers, then Parliament will always perform.
In just 1 minute, final remarks, Rugarama?
I want to state to the viewers that when I'm about to lose hope, and I see the likes of Eyaka increasing in numbers, then my hope is revived. When I see things like the African Free Continental Trade Area, I get semblance of hope that actually our Vision 2063 of the African Union is on the correct trajectory. I want also to warn, conclusive on this, that the forces that failed the Osejefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to get out of the system the way he did, the forces that killed Patrice Lumumba in the infancy of his leadership and wiped out the progressive leaders when the African Union was forming have not left. As we move to realize the Vision 2063 and build the African continent that we want, we must refocus and be reminded that the white man is watching and he's not our friend.
In just 30 seconds, Bujuta?
The white man is not our friend, fine. But why even ourselves, more enemies of ourselves. And we need to look at the issue of monetized politics. Once we still remain with this issue of whoever has the money to win the vote is still a big problem. And now if we can't go over that, we are still mourning for quite some time, which will be unfortunate.
Thank you very much. Rachel, in less than 1 minute.
I think the major problem for us as Africans at this time remains the fact that we have refused to have a conversation with ourselves, a sincere conversation. We have continued to conduct ourselves as people who are just passing through with no real agenda or target. That is a very reckless way to be doing things. Many, many years after the colonizers left, our leaders must rise to the occasion to redo our political affairs urgently.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Ndugu Akol Mandia Mazima. Thank you so much, Ndugu. And of course, thank you so much, Ndugu Mututa here. We had hoped to have Julius Malema of the EFF from South Africa. We had also hoped to have Paul Musamali, representative at the regional parliament in Arusha. We couldn't have both of them, but the conversation will continue. And when you have another opportunity to speak to them, we'll please engage them. We'll stop the conversation here for today. And of course, wish you all the best of the weekend. From me to you and on behalf of the Pan-African team. My name is Jagenda Semakula Zikusoka Sajabi. God bless you and shalom.